I think by the end of next year, we're going to be in a better place. I think we will be. That's my prediction.
I like your optimism. I will not weigh in then.
And welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. I am your host, Tom. Today's episode is brought to you by Wondershare Recover It, where you can get a free trial for free below in the description, and also by Micro Center, who is running their holiday deals. Today I am joined by a guest who, well, actually, Carbon Cry, editor of Moore's Law is Dead, put together some fun facts that I think I will read first, this is the seventh appearance of this guest on the show. This is, and I thought this was interesting, the oldest guest who is still regularly on Broken Silicon and active himself on YouTube. So, like, you beat Hardware Unboxed narrowly. You beat the Anonymous Server Engineer, who's an anonymous guest who's been on a few times. To put things in perspective, this was 2019. The previous episode was titled Curb AMD Enthusiasm, about overhyping Zen 2. Which seems quaint now. And yeah, I mean, the only guest with more appearances is Brian Heemskirk, who's a game developer with 9, and Tim, actually, from Hardware Unboxed, who ties you. So he hasn't beat you, but he's tied you. Also, I noticed this. This will come out on the 23rd of December, exactly a year after the last time. That is incredibly rare that the Tuesday falls on the same day, or the release day is the same. But all right, as always, according to the comments, I'm speaking too much. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I am Dawid. I do tech stuff occasionally on on YouTube, and I can't believe it's been 7 years of us doing this. That's because it's like each one of the 7 has been this like end of year recap, right? Wow,
pretty much. Yeah,
I'm starting to feel old now. That's crazy.
I mean, 7 still kind of almost feels like a number in the middle of the first digits. Wait until it's 8, 9,
That's
10
true.
years. That's when it's going to go, oh, this has been going on for a decade.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. I mean, let's see if we can make it to 10 years. I think that'll be cool. And then hopefully by then I would have beaten Tim. We'll just be tied with Tim, but we'll be ahead.
Yeah, we'll see. Tim comes on quite a bit. Clean Sweep writes in, Dawid, what's been your favorite goofy tech product of 2025?
So, I mean, this one doesn't really count as a tech product of 2025, but this is a video that I did this year, was playing Doom on like an electric drum set, using an electric drum set as a peripheral. That was really fun. It was terrible. It was stupid, but it was, yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
I've seen people trying, and I guess sometimes in extreme scenarios, succeeding in beating Dark Souls by using a drum.
Yeah.
How long did you beat a level? I mean, did you get good at it? Okay.
Yeah. No, it was a proof of concept more than anything else. It was even just the process of like binding everything was quite complicated. And then I got like halfway through a level. That was as far as I got.
I have to imagine, because I'm sure, right, you've seen someone play in like Dark Souls or something on a drum, that when you saw that, you're like, well, that looks insane.
Yeah.
But then you try to play even Doom, where the original one, right? You can't.
I think it was the Dark Ages. It was.
It was a recent one. It wasn't like the one where you can't even aim up.
No.
But I imagine you play that game and you go, oh yeah, I mean, it looked crazy when they were doing that before, but now that I've tried, it actually looks even more crazy to me that they were able to do that.
Yeah, no, 100%. It is. Yeah, because aiming is so difficult. You have to like bind it to a symbol each, and then just like go to town on the symbols to try and like get, because if it's too sensitive, like one hit moves you like this far, then you're not accurate enough. But if the increments are too small, then you have to hit like a huge amount to get any kind of movement down. So it's a very, very fine balance you got to hit.
Yeah, it's that balance of like adjusting sensitivity when you're aiming in a game. And do you want it especially with like a controller, I would say, do you want it so that you're not like just swinging past enemies, or do you? I've never thought about that with a drum. I guess I didn't even think about how they did it. Again, I'm thinking of when I've seen people play Dark Souls. So that means they had to program it and go, this is the exact amount I will move every time I hit the drum, and I just have to get used to that. If I have to move more, I have to find another way to beat this boss. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wonder if they actually also then fine tune the controls per boss. So like a specific boss has, each hit is 3 pixels of movement. That works for this boss, and another one, needs more or less.
You could go like full like Rockstar mode and have like the pedals below you where you adjust sensitivity dynamically, kind of like you're adjusting whatever, when they're playing on stage. All right, I have another opening question here. Florida Man writes in and says, for a number of people, this has been the year of Linux, but for you, Dawid, it was the year of the Mac. Was it? I don't know. Have you been looking at a lot of Mac stuff recently?
So I posted a video just yesterday of me coming out as a Mac user. So I've actually switched my video making workflow to a MacBook. And it is so much better than Windows. I don't know. I don't know if you've had that experience, but I was mind blown because every time I travel occasionally to make YouTube videos, and having to edit on a gaming laptop is the worst. But then when I switched to a MacBook, it's just so much better. Like my MacBook is a better video editing device than my desktop system that I built specifically for that. So yeah, that's kind of, and
is that just in terms of stability or just literally everything? Speed, smoothness, how fast it renders?
Yeah. So it's okay. So I think the only thing where the PC beats it is in actual render time at the end of the project. But when it comes to like timeline experience and like playback and a whole bunch of other performance metrics of Premiere Pro, the MacBook's way better. And this is like an M2 Pro MacBook. It's like a couple generation old one as well, with just 16 gigs of RAM in it. And it's the operating system is way more stable with Adobe. I wasn't getting any weird crashes and kind of that kind of stuff, which I get all the time on Windows. And macOS just feels less diseased somehow than Windows does. Windows is so just loaded down with crap at this point that
so I don't use Adobe. I've heard that a lot on Windows, so I actually don't get a lot of crashes.
Okay.
What I will say though is 2 things. Number one, the editor of Moore's Law, video audio editor of Moore's Law is Dead for the podcast, Gerard. He, I remember when I first hired him, or really he volunteered to help the show. Okay. And then he was still just kind of getting started out. I shipped him one of my Vega 56s that came out of an old mining rig for him to use in Spain. Eventually we started making money. He had enough to buy like a 4090 and he used that. But he also had a MacBook that he would use because he's also in a band while he's touring or traveling. So if you can imagine, this guy plays music, but then on the tour bus will be like editing videos for Moore's Law. Cool. But there were several times where there was like an audio issue specifically, and I've heard this a lot from musicians, that he could not get this glitch to stop happening editing on PC. And he's like, I'm just going to finish this on my MacBook. And that happened enough times that he said, screw it, I'm buying like a $4,000 MacBook. And I believe he now does all editing on Apple as well. So you're not alone. All I can say is I have a Strix Halo laptop now.
Oh, cool.
And I will say the professional drivers for that, I haven't had a single crash with it once. So I do think there's also something here with like Nvidia. I'm pretty lucky lately with Nvidia, though. We'll get into their driver issues this year soon. But I don't know how much of it is Windows and how much of it is just the complexity of a Windows PC if it's a gaming one, because that probably means you have Intel. If you're lucky enough to have AMD, almost certainly you still have an Nvidia GPU. So you've got multiple hardware vendors that don't always play nice together, and then the worst operating system on earth on top of that. I don't know if you've ever tried like an APU system for that, because I do find that that's probably half the reason Windows is crashing, is you're using multiple vendor products instead of one unified APU.
So this has been like the APU suggestion is interesting. Like I have a Strix Halo system which I can try to see how that goes. But in terms of like which vendors have been issues, like I've gone through several kind of workstation setups. I've had all AMD, like Intel, Nvidia, Intel, AMD, like various combinations of components, and there will be updates of Adobe which are slightly more stable, and then there will be ones that just don't work, and you have to go find different ones. So I think your point about the complexity issue is probably a big part of it, because like this, it feels like you're rolling a dice every time. Whereas with the MacBook, because their like ecosystem is so locked down, I think it's easier for them to have more guaranteed stability with this kind of software.
Yeah, I mean, I assume you still have a gaming PC. Like, how happy would you be if Apple eventually, I feel like they're 90% there, just finish the work in supporting all games on Mac? Like, it's still odd to me they don't.
But the thing is, I kind of am also scared of Apple becoming a gaming company, because they are just such an expensive brand. And I think that if they start pushing I don't know. I wouldn't want gamers to have to buy a Mac product to play video games, because then you have to buy like. Oh no,
that's not what I'm saying. But don't you wish that it could be a more viable option? Because if anything, wouldn't that make Microsoft have to compete if they didn't just de facto they were the operating system for gaming, which I think is kind of happening with Steam right now and SteamOS.
That's very true. And I mean, if they're just another player, if like you said, they just make their ecosystem slightly more viable for it. More players is a good thing.
But let me just get into kind of the big opening push, as I usually do. I've made a list of the things from this year. We can flip through them. We'll probably talk about a subject more if there's more interest from you or me. But before we get into that, I'll say my thoughts on this first and then let you go. But how would you summarize 2025? Because for me, I was thinking about this, putting the notes together. It was a year of just many things coming out later than expected, and then like all upsets. Like RDNA 4 actually worked very well at launch and had supply compared to Nvidia. Nvidia had a summer of like really bad drivers, which is very unlike them lately. And Zen 5 X3D completely, I mean, I could pull up our old episode. Me and you were just talking about how much Arrow Lake and Zen 5 let us down last year. And then Zen 5 with Vcache comes out, Strix Halo comes out, and I think those products completely switched the narrative on how good Zen 5 is. Oh, and then Panther Lake didn't come out, the B770 didn't come out. Like, a lot of things just did not come out this year that we thought would. But I don't know, that's how I think of this year. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just because it's the most recent thing happening at the moment, but it's all just been clouded by RAM shortage and how that's kind of made the future of gaming seem quite uncertain, or not even gaming, just consumer electronics at this point. So that's kind of been the main thing that comes up when you mention that. But yeah, like, it has been cool how much AMD has been able to really just pull out some awesome releases. Like the 9070 XT as well was way better than I was expecting. And yeah, did I answer your question? Sorry, I got lost my train of thought there a bit.
No, you did. And I actually checked last year. I believe what you pretty much said about RDNA 4 was it probably will be good. AMD can make good hardware, but I just want the launch to be competent. Don't have stupid driver issues. Don't have like Wattman not work for like one of the sliders be broken at launch. Don't like do like a launch without AIB cooler support or no availability, or like RDNA 3 launched and like it was in a lot, but still like 10% of their launch cards had like what was it? The coolant inside of the pipes like didn't work correctly or something, if you remember. Like none of that happened. This was now of course it wouldn't be AMD without fumbling Redstone at the finish line here, but I will say though, this was a weird year where for me, AMD proved that if they can do more with less, and Nvidia kind of proved they don't care anymore. I mean, if we're being honest.
Yeah. No, I think that they I don't think that they're interested in gamer money anymore, because they're at the center of just taking all of the AI money. So yeah, it's going well for them.
Yeah,
now.
when I look back, we covered the RDNA 4 thing a little bit. When I look back at all of the subjects from early this year, I wonder if you remember this. I wanted to bring this up again because seriously, for me, this was just absolutely ridiculous. When Nvidia unveiled the RTX 5000 series, they were like, this is triple the performance of the 4090, which we've seen before. But at least the 4090 was like actually like 80% faster than the 3090, 60% faster than the 3090 Ti. Like it was actually quite a bit. And if you turn on ray tracing, the 4090 could double performance of the previous gen. The 5090, I remember like a couple days goes by and they're like, it's double the performance or whatever they said. And then you like see the one graph of that frame gen and you're like, is this thing like 30% faster despite having 50% more cores and double the bandwidth? And then that was just, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, but I think never forget on that one. That was pretty shocking to me.
No, it really was. And the fact that they then saw the outrage that people had about and then they just kind of doubled down with a bunch of the other GPU launches. Because like, I feel like the 5090 was almost the least egregious in terms of that. Because it was with the 5070 where they were like, oh, we're it's like twice as fast as a 4090. And then that was just with their terrible frame gen. Yeah, so the fact that they then also didn't learn with any of the other GPUs, like, yeah, I don't know. They're asleep at the wheel or something.
Yeah, and an interesting thing to me is they don't seem to be backing away from that at all. They still keep talking about frame gen. And just to put things in perspective, and maybe we'll talk about this more later, but like from what I've seen for plans for the PSSR 2, PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution 2, stuff for whatever they're going to do with that, with the PS6. A big thing I put out a couple of weeks ago was I was thinking like, I asked a few developers, is there like any evidence they're working on frame gen at PlayStation? And they all said no. And to be fair, no one tells Sony they want frame gen.
Yeah.
So I wonder what you think about that, because I still see some reviews say things like, you know, when it's working, FSR Redstone is about as good as DLSS 4, although it doesn't have multi-frame gen, and PlayStation lacks multi-frame gen. And I just go, I don't think I ever need multi-frame gen.
Yeah, I think I don't know which reviews you're referring to, so I'm kind of worried to accidentally slight someone here. But I feel like if you're complaining about multi-frame gen not being a thing, you probably don't game, because they make games feel terrible. Like, it is so bad. So I don't know what, like, I don't think somebody who genuinely enjoys playing games and, you know, is like, would miss that much, because it's a useless feature pretty much. But I think the reason why Nvidia keeps bringing it up is because I think shareholders like it, because it's AI. You know, you could be like, oh, this is like how we're integrating AI into gaming, and then number go up. So I don't think they think that gamers like it. I think that they think shareholders like it. It's just my theory. I don't know. Like,
no, I think there's a lot of truth to that. And I also think that me and you forget probably pretty easily that we are more hardcore gamers than 99% of gamers, and that half the time they might get away with it when they just put, you know, doubles your frames. And, you know, there's like, I'm trying to think, my experience with like frame rates is, I mean, the difference between 30 and 60 is comical. I mean, I honestly think if I was Sony, if I worked at Sony, I would say we should not release games at 30. Like, we should tell them you can't do that. That's not going to happen. But I do think 30 feels that bad. And I think 120 is obvious compared to 60. And I would say like 180 is noticeable versus 120 frames per second for sure. I will say once I get to about 200 frames per second, I can't really tell the difference between that and 160 that easy. Like, that's when you get into diminishing returns. But not everyone's like me. And I do see people in the comments when they're like, I love frame gen and I can't tell the difference. So I don't know. My kind of douchey argument to that would actually be, well, if you can't tell the difference, then you probably don't need it, because you probably just can't tell the difference between any of these frame rates. But I mean, I don't know. Have you tried it recently? Because I have, and it's still, when I try it, I think it's just terrible.
So I think it was I occasionally kind of turn it on in while I'm testing in videos just to see what happens. But the most recent time that I did kind of like an extensive actual test of how it feels was pretty. I think it was when the 5070 came out and that Half-Life 2 RTX demo thing came out. So that was like halfway through the year, I think, and it's so bad. Like, yeah, you get the extra smoothness of the higher frame rate, but then it doubles your latency, which is so weird because when you're used to associating higher frame rate with lower latency. So when the inverse happens, it's almost like this uncanny valley feeling. Like I really, really dislike that technology. But
yeah, the last time I used it was, I think, in the Battlefield 6 beta on PC, and this is a game that can notoriously punish your CPU, especially if you have an Nvidia GPU where there's the CPU overhead issue. And I was like, wow, I mean, I have a Zen 4 X3D system, and what I found is when I'm using a 9070 XT, I could get over 200 frames per second. You know, maybe I have to turn on FSR or something, but I can, and it looks pretty good. With the 4090, I can crank up more settings at 120 and keep 120, but I couldn't really get over a stable 160 because of how the CPU overhead thing works with high-end NVIDIA GPUs. I was like, whoa, perfect. Let me try frame gen. And it actually made it worse. Like, just everything. Not only did absolute frame rates actually go down a bit, probably because it was punishing the CPU even more, which was the bottleneck, but I found like 90 frames with frame gen felt so much worse than even 60, or 120 even felt worse than just 60 capped, that I still like, I see people say this. I've yet to, like, I can't find one example where I try it and it does what it says it's supposed to be doing, you know?
yeah, no, it's the same here. Like, I can imagine that in Battlefield 6, it also feels real bad because that, like, the game is supposed to be very snappy and responsive. Like, yeah, the latency is more important than the frame rate. Yeah, I actually kind of want to go try that now. I can imagine it's
well, because
brutal.
yeah, like, I mean, I tried like FSR 4 RSR frame gen 2 years ago. I turned on Hogwarts Legacy for 10 seconds to see how it looked back then, and I just expected today trying frame gen. Surely this would change my mind a little based on some of the comments, and I just know, if anything, it's hard in my opinion. The only other thing I have here for the NVIDIA issues is they didn't even support PhysX with the 5000 series until like a week ago or whatever. Just in general, again, with the bad driver problems, like I switched from a 4090 to a 9070 XT for a few months, and I found half of the things I was complaining about was not Windows. It was NVIDIA. Like, all of these monitor flickering, like when I change resolution on an NVIDIA card, still to this day, it's better than it was earlier this year. But like, it'll flash and it'll take 5-10 seconds to go, yes, keep this resolution. With AMD, it's just done. Like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on, like, kind of, I think for the first time ever, seeing a glimmer that maybe NVIDIA's losing the plot when it comes to having drivers that work as well as AMD. Because that's something people usually attack AMD for.
Yeah, no, that is a weird shoe on the other foot kind of situation we've got going. But I think it just illustrates, again, what we were talking about earlier, where I don't think they are dedicating enough resources to their like gaming segment to make this stuff work, because it is all very complicated tech, and they'd rather make AI data center stuff. So yeah, it's kind of crazy. I'm curious to see how this is going to go over the next couple of years, because if the data center build out keeps going, or data center build out keeps going in the way that it's going now, NVIDIA will have a great time. But if something happens and that slows down a lot, and the market for their AI GPUs dries up, yeah, I wonder if how that's going to play out for us as gamers.
Yeah, because it's not like the mining thing. Like, the mining boom was consumer led. So you had a bunch of people on the ground buying up gamer stuff that they could then quickly sell. And that's also why I think the prices on graphics cards stayed inflated for multiple years, is you had not like a not to give them too much credit, but you didn't have like a disciplined company making plans. You had people just kind of grasping at whatever they could get, and that can go on for a very long time. But at the same time, half of the stuff that they're making on these nodes at TSMC can never be a gaming card. I mean, I'm sure there's many. If the AI bubble collapse, like if something happens where major corporations, we're canceling our contracts, we don't need more data center GPUs, I'm sure you'd probably see some flooding of the markets with like 5090s that were used for AI, but I don't think you would see as much. So the amount of e-waste we might see, might be insane.
Yeah. I did a video about this about a month ago, talking about how this like current drought is very different to the crypto mining situation, just because of exactly what you were saying there, where when this market dries up, it's not like we can take these H200 GPUs and then game with them. We're just gonna have to build houses out of them or whatever. Like I don't know what we're gonna do with these GPUs after that. But I think that if that market dries up, Nvidia will kind of have to turn their focus back to us potentially. I mean, yeah, like it'll be interesting to see how it goes.
Yeah, and I suppose it probably will be easy for them to do that. I mean, I've long suggested that if Nvidia feels threatened, they tend to like go for broke. Like I believe Pascal's aggressive for relative to to now pricing was because I think Nvidia did buy the hype on Vega. Like I think they really did think Vega would be that good, or they thought it could be. For good reason. I mean, they're bringing tons of HBM. I mean, maybe Vega's really powerful. And they launched all these products for less than they really had to. Same with Maxwell. I think they were really threatened by the 290X, and that's why Maxwell was so aggressive. I suspect they would probably do the same thing with the 6000 series, but I'm just not sure because they really seem to not care. Like, I think the obvious thing is AI bubble collapses. They bring out a 16 gigabyte, all of these more aggressively spec'd and priced cards, and they like try to cement dominance in gaming. But I have to wonder because I just don't think they're really paying attention anymore. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. There's no way for us to really know. But it's not like they're paying their gaming teams less money. So like why they would be making these mistakes with drivers, to me, just suggests that no one there really, like you get promoted at a company to you want to usually to the part that makes the most money, because that's where you will be the most powerful and make the most money and get the biggest promotions. Like that's why I believe Xbox continues to get sidelined, is the best executives at Microsoft don't want to be in charge of Xbox, because why would you want to be in charge of the like, ugly stepsister wing or something of the company? Like, why would you want to do that? And I think at Nvidia it used to be gaming, but it's not anymore. And so I have to wonder like how competently a swing would be when I think like their smartest, most aggressive people have all probably been promoted to different parts of the company by now. Yeah,
that's a good point. That, I mean, do you know that their gaming team hasn't shrunk yet? So they haven't like moved engineers to different sectors?
What I will say is some of the driver issues they've been having, I've heard, were kind of linked to this, not in like less people being there, but when there's new hires, the AI people get to hire more and the gamer people don't, and they're told to just, but games keep getting more complicated, and AMD keeps hiring more people in that department. Although AMD, I was told also suffers from this issue where if you want to be an executive or an engineering lead at AMD, you want to be in the Ryzen teams, because that's where the cool stuff happens. So to be fair, AMD also kind of has this problem in a big way. But yeah, I think it's more of they tend to just say your budget for this year is the same as last year, or it's like 10% more, right? More than inflation, but that's it. Whereas the AI teams are like, well, we're quadrupling your budget this year. And so there's just less focus. And like you said with frame gen, it's like, I think in a meeting, you'll get more slaps on the back by your boss if you mention AI than if you mention just, hey, I think we need more people working on drivers for Starfield or something.
Yeah. No. That makes That makes a lot of sense. That they're just prioritizing their current golden goose or whatever.
This piece of content is brought to you by Wondershare Recoverit V14 and their AI-powered data recovery tools that help you restore files on Mac OS, Windows, or really anything, like even an SD card from a broken drone, with ease. Via AI deep scan technology with device-specific programming, it can specifically and quickly find corrupted footage or pictures and reconstruct them more efficiently than ever before. And also often to a higher quality than you might think. It doesn't just repair broken images, but enhances blurry and low images after they are repaired and even gives you back your metadata as well. It is very easy to use and supports one-click recovery of videos and picture files and the repair of unplayable videos as well, which, let me tell you, there have been broken silicon recordings in the past where only a part of a guest video was corrupted, but it prevented me from watching more than like a minute of the video. And in the past, I had to actually jump through a few hoops to find a backup cloud recording, and if that wouldn't have worked, I would have been in a lot of trouble. If I had Wondershare Recoverit at the time, that could have just fixed the file and I wouldn't have been in any trouble. And you know, they also have exclusive support for Apple video and image codecs, full compatibility with macOS 26 ecosystems, and full creative design project file recovery for apps like Final Cut Pro and Photoshop. So if you want to support Moore's Law is Dead, click the link below to try out Wondershare Recoverit for free. Seriously, in the description, there's a link for Moore's Law is Dead fans that will let you download a trial for free. And if you do this thing that costs you nothing, it helps out Moore's Law is Dead a ton. So please do check out Wondershare Recoverit V14 through the link below today. All right, another thing I have here, and I guess we'll get to it now just because it's linked to Nvidia, is RTX 50 Super. I feel like there have been leaks and rumors about this. Well, I mean, I know for like the past like 8 months, and then every 2 months the release date. Oh, now it's going to launch then, and now I've heard I've seen other people say, and I've also been told this is actually a widely circulated thing, that 50 Super has a placeholder release date of Q3 in 2026. So to me, that sounds like it might never come out, to be honest. Yeah. But I don't know, maybe you don't, but do you have any thoughts on the Super drama? Because if any series could use a Super, it would be this one, I think. And do you think, like, what do you want? Do you think it's going to come out? Because that's so far away. That's so weird that they're just like, oh, we're just delaying this a year.
Yeah. Especially considering from what I remember about the leaks is that it was like primarily going to be video memory increases, right? That was one of the biggest elements, which makes me pretty skeptical because, well, there is no RAM. So how are they going to put more in? Like, I think Nvidia, again, is just, you know, any excuse to allocate less foundry space to gamers is good for them. So I don't know. I think it's, you know, the previous comment conversation we were having. I don't know how much they care to service this market with the Super, because the initial leaks, when were we kind of expecting them to come out?
I'd have to go back, but I know people that had like kind of small briefings about them. I want to say middle of this year, or maybe even the first half, somewhere in there, as they were like little whispers. Because I remember, because I was like surprised. I think it was like late Q2, if I remember right, or something. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, it felt like Blackwell had just come out, probably because it did just come out. And I was like, really? They're already playing around with Super? That must mean sales, at least in do-it-yourself, are pretty bad if they're already playing around with this idea. And then it was like, yeah, it should be late this year. I mean, I knew someone that had a presentation where it was like, it's set in it Q4. And then a month later, that was delayed. And then a week after that, it was widely circulated that if anything, it will launch at the end of 2026. Mm-hmm. So that's the rumors. That's what's been going on behind the scenes. Honestly, the way I read into Q3 is I've also heard from like people in NAND and RAM manufacturing that they think things will get better for supply around then. I think Nvidia may have just forecasted this is when there might be RAM, and so that's when it might come out, but they don't really know if they want to launch it or not, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. If that's the forecast for kind of like when memory is going to stabilize, like did they say why they thought memory was going to stabilize then?
Oh God, I think there was a few reasons. So it's worth pointing out. I believe all of them. I've covered this in a few pieces, but the major RAM manufacturers, Samsung, SK Hynix, Micron, they're building out at a breakneck pace right now. New manufacturing facilities. So I believe by late next year, some of those will be online. So there's a bit of that going on, but otherwise, I don't know. I don't know that I have more details than the obvious stuff that's already public, which is, well, they'll literally have more factories then. But outside of that, the vibe I get is it's like all hands on deck for AI right now, especially after OpenAI bought up all of the world's RAM. And I think they just kind of forecast that they might have met their customers' demands by then, and then they can maybe switch to some other things. I think that's also, if I had to guess, I believe that's also maybe when the new Samsung Nvidia joint factory for HBM4 might be done or around there. Someone's probably gonna write in the comments I'm off by a year or whatever, but what I would say is that's gonna become more of a thing pretty soon. And so maybe they're like, yeah, this is when we're going to make more RAM for GDDR7 and stuff, because we're already 2 generations ahead manufacturing this other stuff. So now we can give this to gamers. But that's probably the best way I could put it. But that's just what they all say. They all say late next year.
That's really interesting. Yeah, because I have read an article about how, and I think it might be SK Hynix, was saying that they are very cautious to build out extra factory supply because they're scared of overcompensating for the overcompensating supply here, because there was a like an Atriarch video, like I don't know, he's some like political streamer, but he was talking about how there was this like cycle of RAM pricing where during COVID the like memory prices went up a lot because there was this huge there was this huge chip shortage, and then in response all of these companies like SK Hynix, Samsung and Micron massively increased their supply to meet that demand, which then vanished pretty quickly. So then suddenly RAM prices just tumbled and they were stuck with a massive supply of RAM that they didn't have anybody to sell it to. So all of their stock prices went down, and it was really bad for these companies.
Did you know that's also a little bit why this shortage happened? Because from what I was told, the reason, like when OpenAI bought up, like, you know, not all of the RAM, but enough of the RAM to freak everybody out.
Like 50% of it.
Like it's insane.
Amount. Yeah.
Like the reason that also did so much damage is because usually a lot of these companies have safety supplies of RAM. In case something like that happens. Like there was one, I don't know if I was in college, but there's like a tsunami that hit, if you remember, like a while ago, and that caused a RAM spike. But some companies had extra warehouses in other countries, and so it didn't last very long. They didn't have these warehouses of RAM either because of how much extra they had before. RAM prices were going down month over month, and so if you're HP, why would you stockpile on RAM in June if you think July will be cheaper? And so also it caused this shortage to be worse because everyone just assumed, like they always seem to, that what's happening will continue to happen the way it is happening, and nothing could ever happen. What I would also say is what I've also read actually is that there might not be an ability to build out more RAM for some of these companies because they've kind of maxed out all tooling already to buy up all the RAM. So anything else would require like new factories to make the new factories. And if you're going to do that, that's like 4 years away, and the shortage will probably be over. At least they all seem to be. And I recently had on Broken Silicon a RAM executive, a memory executive. You know, he's had leadership positions at Micron, AMD, a bunch of different places. And he said that he really does think this will be over by late. Again, when I say over by late next year, I kind of mean like how the GPU shortage was over by the end of 2022. It's not perfect, but like generally speaking, things were half the price they were the previous year. Just not a third yet.
Yeah. I mean, that was my prediction at the end of my video talking about the GPU, the incoming GPU shortage that I think is going to happen because, like Nvidia themselves said that they were cutting their supply of gaming GPUs by 40% or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is, but I'm not saying it's not true. I haven't been able to verify that though.
It makes sense though. Right.
I'm sure they'll cut something, right? That's common sense.
Yeah. But so my prediction was that like the data center build out is going to slow down a lot because, well, it's this whole thing seems really precarious. I mean, I'm sure everybody's got their own theories on it, but when that kind of slows down a lot, it should help stabilize prices. So I think, like end of next year, for RAM prices sounds reasonable.
And that's why I keep telling people to not buy the nonsense. Like, I think there's people saying, oh, you won't be able to get RAM until 2029. So buy this kit for $300 that used to be $100. And I say, I mean, look, if you need something, then you need it. My advice doesn't matter. You're going to have to buy it. Yeah. But if you don't need something, I really don't think this is going to last as long as last time. I mean, at a minimum, they're going to run out of energy to power the data centers by then. So I really don't think this will be as sustained as what we saw before. Again, because it's it's not a consumer-led shortage. Consumer-led shortages can go on for nearly forever,
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, though, these companies do have, I mean, like Nvidia has like $200 billion of cash that they're sitting on. So they could potentially buy up all the RAM for a very long time if they wanted to. But I think, by at least halfway through next year, people who live around data centers are going to start burning them down. Like I feel, the sentiment isn't great. But it could all work out. It could all work out in the way that they want it to work out, and then there will never be RAM or any consumer electronics available again because only
But that's
AI.
the thing, right? Eventually, we're supposed to be using the AI. So that's another argument I have is that I think that either, I don't know if by the end of next year, but within reason, there will be enough skepticism to be popping the bubble, and that will cause RAM prices to come down. Or they're going to have to start making consumer devices to use the actual RAM. I think something's going to have to give. Either you're going to successfully build the AI or you're not. If you're not, prices come down. If you are, you need to make the devices that people would use to use your AI. And that's going to be when you start moving from whatever it is, that's when you're not building it. It's you know to do they will come part of it.
Yes. No, that's true. That's true.
Actually, on that note, one thing to put a bow on the super discussion is recently, and I hope I'm not misremembering this, but I heard that there could possibly be a super laptop series. And if there is, Q3 also makes sense because that would be back to school. That might also be when we first start seeing, good availability of Panther Lake, which would pair with those laptop GPUs, or possibly early Zen 6 stuff. Like, I think there's a chance too that Nvidia has kind of given up on really caring about the do-it-yourself super aspect and is more like, well, we're going to hold this for back to school when we can market all of our super AI laptops, So I think that's also plausibly why we might still see super. But I mean, gun up to your head, do you think we see a super series at this point?
I mean, honestly, considering the current state, I don't know, just because of how they clearly want to make other stuff. But your argument about the super laptop actually sounds pretty compelling. If they because the thing is, like you said, the kind of base Blackwell CPUs, the 50 series, like it just came out, right? It's not been that long since these GPUs came onto the market. So having a laptop refresh kind of end of next year sounds more plausible to me than like a desktop one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think too, like you can make the argument that like, oh, well, they need all of this RAM for AI, and that's why they won't launch Super. Yes, or they might launch Super so they don't have to use even more RAM for the RTX 6000 series. Like maybe that's also why it's delayed, is they're also delaying the 6000 series to like the end of 27 or something. And so it makes sense to have something in the meantime that's mostly for laptop. But, you know, there will be the hardware unboxed review and you can't buy it on Newegg or something probably as well, would be my guess.
Yeah. So we get... we get a 5070 Super instead of a 60 series. That would be
instead of a 60 series sooner rather than
sooner.
later.
Yeah. No, that is the thing, right? It would be pretty easy for them because it's not a massive refresh. It's just some more video memory. So they could potentially like change their mind at some point. It'd be like, oh yeah, this is a good way to delay stuff. Yeah, that makes sense too.
All right, switching gears a little bit. I'm not sure how much I have to add to this, but I don't know if you saw the rumors that came out, at least for me, that there was potentially some sort of 9080 XT that AMD could be working on. The idea was, well, not the idea, but like what I heard was there's engineering samples that seem to have GDDR7 and clocked faster. But since then, I haven't really heard anything. And in fact, I heard there would be a kind of like a full refresh of the 9000 series at one point, like 9075 XT, kind of like RX 580 after 480 stuff. And everything I'm told now is radio silence. So I'm kind of worried that's another casualty of the RAM situation, is there were some cool Radeon products planned, but now they're kind of up in the air. I don't even know what my question is. Just have you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's kind of same as with the Super thing, where because it's also a higher end SKU that they're gonna and AMD is less conservative with the video memory that they add to these cards. So I think that it's probably unlikely to come out in the current climate. They've just like given up on it.
Yeah. I mean, there's rumors that laptops may come with 8 gigabytes of memory again. I mean, in that world, they're probably like, maybe we'll launch it, but not now. Not now.
Yeah.
All right. Completely switching gears. Nintendo Switch 2. Did you have any thoughts on that one? It launched to a huge success. But interestingly, at Black Friday, it was outsold by the PS5. So I do wonder if it's running out of... It's not running out of steam, but if it's not going to have as long of legs as the original Switch. But I don't know if you've tried the Switch 2 and any thoughts on it. It was one of the major releases of this year. Yeah.
I tried to use it as a gaming PC because it has that the gimmick of using the Joy-Cons or whatever flat on a desk as a mouse, and it is terrible. It really does not work well for that. But yeah, I'm not that surprised that it did really well, but I am kind of surprised because there was a lot of like the consumer sentiment, at least in my internet bubble, was pretty negative around it. Just because people seem to dislike Nintendo a lot. It's like, yeah, people don't like Nintendo, but I think that for the kind of the target market of the Switch 2, like it makes sense that a bunch of them bought it up. I think the reason why the PS5 did better on Black Friday, though, is that it could have been a lot of people who were potentially thinking about getting a gaming PC, got scared off by the RAM prices, and then went, wow, now is actually kind of the last opportunity for me to get a gaming device.
And Sony was doing a sale on it, unlike everyone else.
Yeah, and it was a good sale as well. Like, it was a really good price. So yeah, I think that's kind of... But I think the people who were buying up the PS5 is a different demographic than the people who were buying up the Switch 2 when that initially came out. I think they're just different audiences.
But so I'm glad I heard you say that about the Switch 2, because that was also my perception. And I don't know, maybe, this is where people might accuse me of being biased, but from my perspective, I feel like people put on training wheels when it comes to the criticism of Nintendo. I swear there's like a handicap where Nintendo games get a higher Metacritic score on average. And I go, really? That was just another of the same exact Zelda. This gets a 10, like really a 10 compared to The Last of Us or like Claire Obscure. Like, this is at that level, really. The same Zelda game made again. But I don't want to rant about what I think about the Nintendo games, but
some people are going to be super triggered by that.
Another Mario, what a surprise! But yeah, I will say that because of that, because I usually expect there to be like a handicap, I was a bit surprised like how many reviews are fairly negative with this device, and I was pretty outspoken at the time. Like they're basically calling it a Switch Pro, but like the PS5 Pro's like 50%, if you're being generous, double the performance of the PS5 because it has PSSR. It's not really double. The Switch 2 is like, I don't even know, 10 times, 12 times faster than the old Switch. This really shouldn't be called a Pro. This is significantly faster, has new capabilities, and yet everyone's calling this a Pro. So might it just do Pro sales? But it sold out, and I my theory on it is, so my girlfriend predominantly, when she games, it's on a Switch.
Okay.
And she's much more casual than me, but even she said she couldn't keep playing Zelda because she didn't like how low the frame rate was. Like that's how bad. And I think there was a lot of people, tens of millions of people that mostly game on Switch, and they said, you know what? $450 for me to go from like 720p 24 frames a second to like 1080p or 4K 60. Let's do it. That was the easiest decision ever. And I will say, in hindsight, with how much everything else is going up in price, I don't really see 450 as an unfair price for the Switch 2 anymore compared to where things are going. But do you think there's a chance that it could run out of steam a little? Like, yes, of course it sold out at first. The original Switch was just so bad that people were desperate. But long term, it's not going to really be seen as a new console so much as just the ongoing sales of the existing one. And so, you know, I mean, the PS5 Pro sold out, but eventually slowed down a little bit. I wonder what you think about that idea.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, I'm not sure. I think what could possibly happen is that the people that didn't initially jump over from the standard Switch to the Switch 2 are just going to wait for their Switches to die or get stolen or whatever, and then they just
they get this instead of another Switch, right?
Yes, or if there's some, I think it could also have a lot to do with what kind of games Nintendo brings out for the Switch 2, because up until this point, there's been very little like, oh, this is a reason to upgrade from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2 in terms of games. But I think when, you know, the next big Zelda or the next big whatever property like Mario game comes out, people might be more inclined to switch then. So I think because I think the Nintendo consoles are more sensitive to the games that are on it than some of the other ones. I think that's the reason why people buy them. So yeah, it depends on how dedicated Nintendo is to making good games for it, I guess.
Well, you know, on that note too, and again, I know this looking through the lens of my girlfriend who actually cares a ton about the Switch too. The new not Mario, the new Pokemon that was announced, she said this looks like crap. The one that's like in a city or something. And I looked at it compared to some older like 3DS ones, and I'm like, yeah, this does look like crap. And so I don't know if the slowing sales too are like Mario, like everyone up who needed a new one wanted to game at a reasonable frame rate upgraded, but what's left is Mario Kart World, lukewarm reception, a new Pokemon that a lot of people are kind of trashing from what I've seen. Like maybe, you know, a new Animal House?
Animal Crossing?
Animal House, that's a Animal Crossing. Like maybe that'll come out and that'll sell 40 million units and then everything will be saved. But I do think so far the games they've released isn't, you know, making you want to get it unless you need to replace your old Switch.
Yeah. I think that they have a bit of a game issue at the moment. Because it initially launched with, it was just the new Mario Kart and like an HD remake of the most recent Zelda game or something like that. It was a very, very lame, and then you had to pay like $80 or whatever for them. So I think once they get some better IPs going on it, people might be, you know, the sales might pick up again.
Yeah, I'm just concerned because it seems odd to me they didn't have more games ready for this at launch, and that they've dropped the ball on a few of them. But I guess we'll see. All right. Subject number 7 here. Xbox Ally X. I gotta say, I was actually pretty openly critical of this handheld because I thought $1,000 was kind of comical or fair relative to other handhelds around it, I guess, but not telling me they intend this to sell a ton of units. And I was incredibly critical when I saw their new Xbox piece, like console mode, didn't boost performance at all over Windows, further suggesting that Windows has a fundamental issues that they can't just make perform as well as Linux with some simple updates. But I don't know, what are your thoughts on Xbox Ally X? And I think just in general, I don't know if you agree, 2025 was the year Xbox collapsed.
Yeah, because I mean, it was like 2 months before the Ally X came out where they doubled the price of the Game Pass or something. It was like a huge increase in price. Which everyone was so angry about, which fair enough, you know. And I think that also was kind of a difficult sentiment for them to deal with when the Ally X came out, because, you know, it's so part of that ecosystem. But yeah, like I have an Ally X, like I've interacted with it, and the operating system implementation is a dumpster fire. It is so bad. The moment that you can install some Linux distro on it, it just works so much better. Because I think that ergonomically, it is the best handheld I've ever interacted with. Like they managed to replicate the like Xbox controller feel really nicely in it, and it feels so good compared to other handhelds. But yeah, didn't it sell really well though? I think I read an article that it like they sold out on it.
Yeah, but the Wii U sold out. You know, I whenever people say something sold out, I go, let's talk in a couple months when things slow down. They always sell out. No, and I don't know how many they. Oh, right, that is right though. I do know this. I did have a leak I put out where I called retailers up and I was like, "How much are you getting?" And it sounded like less units, or it's like comparable to like an Ampere launch. So they like had, I don't remember off the top of my head, but there were barely any units like company wide at like Best Buys and Amazon for sale. So it did sell out, but to my memory, they were in like the hundreds, maybe thousands if you combine both versions of it.
I see.
Like for an entire retailer. Like, so I don't know how many were ready at launch, but I guess I'll say I would be surprised if there were more than 100,000 ready at launch. Like, I don't even know if that many.
So I remember that they had a bit of there was like a mixed strategy. So they had the base Xbox Ally was available at like Best Buy and stuff. So that was available at more places. Whereas the Ally X, I think you could only buy from Asus's website and one other retailer. I can't remember, but they had something like that where one of the two was only more exclusively available. So I wonder if that could also have been due to like a limit of supply or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll through here. Like by now, I'm sure it's sold hundreds of thousands, to be clear. But I'm not seeing... Oh, okay. So I'm seeing... Yeah, there's evidence that by now they've sold like 150 to maybe like... Yeah, it's maybe in the low hundreds of thousands at most.
Okay.
So I don't know. I mean, I think Switch 2 this year sold 10 or to 20 million units to put things in perspective.
Yeah.
So
I mean, to be fair, it is also like an Asus product as opposed to a Nintendo one, so it does kind of make sense.
Yeah.
But to all of those people that bought them, immediately install Linux on it. It'll make it way better. it'll be a completely different device.
All right, let me move on to this subject then, and we could of course continue to talk about Xbox if we want to. Did you see any of the PS6 leaks that came out of my channel? Because I actually think that's kind of the biggest scoops I've gotten before.
The handheld one is exciting.
Agreed.
That's going to be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember when I first got confirmation of this. But I think there have been kind of rumors Sony was probably working on a handheld for years now, actually. I know I had some stuff about it end of 24 or 25, but then when I finally got like, this is the die size, this is the specs, that's gonna there's some diagram that I couldn't make public because they'd probably send 100 lawyers after me, but it was like, basically like it will have this connectivity. I'm like, oh my God, it's finally happening. And then on top of that recently, I wonder if you follow this, because this one's just, it's not as flashy of a headline, but it's very funny. Like, behind the scenes, Sony's pushing this power saver mode that is so obviously for the handheld. I mean, I thought it was obvious from the beginning, but by now they have, like, because they have all of these portals and SDKs and supporting documents for devs to help them program for their PlayStations. And the energy saver mode, or power saver mode, whatever they call it, I call it low power mode. At this point behind the scenes, it says, make sure to optimize for using as little of the CPU as possible. And moving forward, don't assume you'll have access to more than 8 threads. And you might have to have your game runnable on a different architecture. Like, they're just openly saying, like pretty soon this low power mode might be running on a different CPU with 4 cores. And I'm like, I wonder what device that is, Sony. And yet they just won't come out and say it. So by now it's becoming hilarious, like that this is happening.
But I think it's exciting. Like, I think it's going to be cool. Because we will finally get a good PS Vita or Vita or whatever they called it. And
you'll get to and finally it will run all of the games on the console. It won't like, here's Borderlands 2 with only 2 players and 20 frames per second. It'll actually be the full game. I wonder how successful you think that will be, because I'll speak for myself, but from the tone of your voice, I suspect you agree. You're more interested in the handheld than the home console.
So I think the last couple of home console generations has kind of gotten me concerned about the initial launches, because like with the Switch, it's like there's like one game always on it, but whereas the handheld, like, I think there is a gap in the market for it that would be served quite well by a PlayStation device. And I think that's the one that I'm pretty excited about.
I also have to imagine that, like, it's getting harder and harder for you to be excited about the new graphics. And so it's more, can you just let me put this in my bag when I'm traveling? Unless now, instead of whatever the PS5 Pro does on average, like 1800p, 60 to kind of 1440p 120, now it's like 4K 120. And the ray tracing's cranked up, but like, is that as exciting as getting that in a handheld? Probably not, right?
I think the most exciting thing for me would be if they can get the games to not smear with all of the like upscaling and stuff that they always use in it. That would make the PS6 very exciting if there's just much less smearing.
Yeah, well, I will say too. And so that was another part of recent leaks I put out, is that PSSR 2 seems to, it's an entirely new. It requires a new API. Does everything entirely different. It kind of seems like the difference between FSR2 and FSR4, like how big of the leap's going to be. So I think they are trying to work on that, especially because there were like some PS5 Pro games recently, apparently, that like just had visual glitches in the game. It's really sloppy work by the devs on that one. But I gotta say, I tried the Xbox Ally X in a Best Buy recently. And, it does have a lot of aliasing, though. I know it's like twice as fast as the Steam Deck and blah, 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 blah. But I have to admit that, like, it still, to me, doesn't look that AAA, when you're playing games on it. But I wonder if you disagree with me on that.
No, I agree. I think that to the extent to which I get that that's kind of how they market it, is that, you can play like Doom, the Dark Ages on it or whatever. But I feel like handhelds are better suited to more like indie games and stuff, to more, to like less AAA games. But yeah, in terms of what experience you get on it, like those games still kind of run like butt cheeks. Even with the much more powerful chip and all the RAM that they have in it and stuff. For sure.
Yeah, and that's why I think that I don't know what comparison I would make, but like you see these products that come out and you're like, oh, I think you were just a gen too soon. And I think the Ally X is a gen too soon to really be able to fully claim AAA gaming on the go. But once we get to 2027 and we have like a 3 nanometer device instead of a 4 nanometer, and this is, I think, even more important for a handheld, that's purpose built with a closed console ecosystem. So it's as efficient as possible. Like once you get something that's like PS5 or above performance in a handheld, not something that's like Xbox Series S or below in a handheld. That is where you're going to get to where you turn it on, the game runs. It's not, it drops to 40 sometimes. I think that's where you'll be able to finally like make that claim, because otherwise, honestly, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this, like otherwise the Switch 2 honestly kind of runs games better than like the Ally X half the time, at least in terms of turn on and play quickly, you know? Yeah.
That's why I think the most important thing is don't have Windows on it. If you don't have Windows on the device, you've won basically, like, cause it just doesn't work for that application at all. Windows does not like to be on a handheld, and then any changes that you have to make to it to get it more usable for a handheld just makes the stability even worse than it already was. So yeah, that closed console ecosystem that you were talking about, I think is probably the most important element.
This piece of content is brought to you by Micro Center. That's right. Once again, Micro Center is sponsoring this piece of content amongst years of many pieces of content. You know, we worked with them for a very long time because they often just have the best deals on, well, PC components. Like right now, if you go to their holiday deals link that is in the description, you can see that they have a combo with a 7600X 3D and a motherboard and 16 gigabytes of RAM. Now, is that $600, $700? No, it is just under $400. That's right. For about $400, you're getting something that would usually be the cost of the CPU and the motherboard. But now, despite RAM shortages, you are also getting 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is enough to get you going until those shortages are over. And deals like this is why I recommend Micro Center. You know, check them out in the description. They also have a link to their news link, so you can always be up to date on the latest announcements in gaming hardware. And I don't know what there really is else to say. They've worked with Moore's Law ZID for a very long time. They're easy for me to work with, and they really do bring some of the best deals, so they're easy for me to recommend as well. So please support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out those links below to Micro Center today. Huli Do writes in. He says, you recently mentioned that Sony is having to push devs to support low power mode in their games. You've talked about this mode as a Trojan horse for enabling future mobile support in PS5 games, but what was Sony's official pitch to devs to get them to support low power mode in the first place? What benefit does it give the developer? I'm assuming that Sony hasn't been promising a mobile device to devs, and I seriously doubt anyone is buying a game because they use less power. Shouldn't we have expected this to be a hard sell? Yes, and before we started recording, I actually messaged to game devs like, actually, yeah, what was Sony's pitch to you for this low power mode? And they said, I mean, it was just both of them, same thing basically. It was just what you would expect. This is good for the environment, you know, yada, 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 green for the planet. And then a month went by, almost no devs added it. And now there isn't a pitch. They're just like typing in all caps to them. Shut up and add low power mode, nerd. Let's go. Okay. And so that's, again, what tells me I don't think it's about... They're not going, don't you care about the planet even more? They're going, we need this for a future device with a different CPU, wink. Do it now if you want your game to be buyable maybe in the future. And so they've thrown away any explanation, and they're just kind of bullying devs from what I'm being told.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they're kind of bullying devs to implement this feature without adding the asterisk of like, there's hardware support in it for you at some point, you know?
I think they should drop the act.
I agree.
Like, I mean, come on. Like, we all know by now.
Yeah. And then the game developers might be more willing to accommodate it, because then they know that there's going to be a device that'll come out that will, you know, give more appeal to their game or whatever.
All right. So on another note, somewhat related, have you seen the Xbox Magnus stuff though? Because I do think, at least from a hardware perspective, it has, what was it? I think it has 68 or 6. It's in the 60s RDNA 5 compute units. It has 11 Zen 6 cores, and it's actually sharing its GPU chiplet with the mid-range dedicated graphics card from RDNA 5. So I think, I don't know what's going to happen to the future of Xbox, but I think this is like a hybrid console is really interesting.
Yeah. So my thought that I do you think they're going to try and target it as like a high-end Steam machine alternative?
Yeah, I suspected that, and I suspected that just for the fact that I believe it's going to be 2 chiplets that combined, to my memory, is like 400 something millimeters squared. So you're getting to like a bigger than a 5080, well, using 3 nanometer instead of right now 4. And I have to assume it has at least 24 gigs of RAM. And frankly, I think it's probably going to have, because I think it's 192, but I think it's going to have, 36 to 48 gigabytes of RAM. When I hear that, I go, probably not cheap.
No, that's good. Especially now, that's going to be $8,000.
Well, keep in mind though, this will launch years from now, so I think the RAM shortage might be over.
Fair.
We can only hope.
No, that's fair.
But on top of that, they also just said that, like they just said publicly, the next console is going to be expensive after launching a $1,000 console. So to me, I think that means the floor is $1,000, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was $1,200 or $1,500.
Because the thing is, what do we think the Steam machine is going to be? Like $1,000?
I continue to think it will be like $500 to $650. Actually,
I don't know. I don't think so.
We'll see who's right.
Because they even said that they're not going to subsidize the pricing of it.
I know. I think they profit at $450.
Oh, you think so?
Oh,
damn. Okay. Because I've been thinking 1,000, so I'm hopefully going to be very pleasantly surprised by that.
Well,
because if it is that amount, if it's like between 450 and like 600, then I think there is space for the Magnus to be like 1,200, and then be kind of targeted as a premium alternative to that.
But I think they have to market it mostly as a PC, because the second you do console, Sony just goes, oh, it's a console. Well, ours is half the price and pretty much the same performance. So like,
yeah. And
but as a gaming PC, that's a really cheap high-end gaming PC. Though.
That's true. Yeah. And it doesn't, and not marketing it in comparison to the Steam machine would also make sense, because the Steam machine has Linux on it. And that's not what Microsoft wants to draw comparisons to or whatever. So yeah, that's interesting.
Well, and to continue, if I may, like the Steam machine thing, because that's been a whole thing. Well, people keep talking about what they think that's going to cost. But I'd say the 2 main points I would make, just ignoring like the BOM cost analysis I did, which I used to do that professionally. I also did that for the other consoles. It turned out to be correct. Besides the PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
But I stand by what the PS5 Pro costs to make. I think Sony's just milking it because they don't have competition anymore. I mean, when the Series X is $800, why would the PS5 Pro be $600? I mean, why? Why should we make it any cheaper, guys?
Yeah.
But discounting any of that, their handling of the PR around it has been interesting. You know what? They came out and they said, it will be priced like a PC, which to me means nothing when the Xbox is $800. Because what does that mean? I mean, consoles are now up to $1,000. So I don't really know what that means. But then they came out and they said it will cost less than an equivalent PC. So they've kind of said 2 contradictory things. And admittedly before the RAM spike, but still. Maybe still at the RAM spike, actually. You can go on Craigslist and find some used RAM or something pretty easily still. I can build the equivalent PC for $600, the Steam machine. So if you tell me this is going to be like $700, I go, at that point, I can almost get a 9060 XT system that's going to blow this out of the water by like 2 to 1 in performance. So I don't see how this could even survive above 600.
Yeah, 1,000 would be crazy for it, because it's not even got a dedicated GPU in it. So no, that's fair.
It does actually, and this is where I think there's a fundamental misconception on how bargain bin this thing is. Like, so here's what it has. People see 6-core Zen 4, but if you break it down, it's got something called Little Hawk Point. That's the budget version of the old, like last gen. Like by the time this comes out, it's 2026. There will be Gorgon Point from AMD. Before that was Strix Point. Before that was Hawk Point. So we're talking 3 gens old, and it's the little version. That means it has 2 Zen 4 cores and 4 Zen 4C. So it's mostly a Zen 4C CPU that uses 30 watts and would probably be $100 if you could even buy it on desktop, but you can't. By the way, this device only has the ability to support, I believe, like 1 SSD and 1 x8 GPU. As luck would have it, the RX.
It has a PCIe slot, so it's gonna.
I don't know how maybe they'll solder it to the board, but either way, it's basically a mobile 7600M, which also has a x8 PCIe interface, which is why I think they paired it. But so in 2026, this is going to be a cut down, a like 7600M, which is an RDNA 3.5 GPU, a budget or even entry level GPU from 2023, so it's a 3-year-old low-end 8 gigabyte 6 nanometer GPU in a year where 2 nanometer products will be launching. So when I see that and that, I think Valve went to AMD and said, "What's on clearance?"
Yeah, no, that's true. Okay, no. Okay, I take my price prediction back. Then that is. They can, that has to be way less than what I thought.
I think it's limited to HDMI 2.0. Like it doesn't even, which I think is a software issue that they can probably fix. But still, like everything about this to me screams this thing is like, what did AMD give us for free? Like what is AMD trying to get rid of from 3 years ago? If we can put this in a $500 device, though, we can really give the consoles some trouble. Like that's, and you can't upgrade the GPU, so like this isn't a PC in that you can upgrade it besides maybe the RAM. So I don't know, that's my pitch, but I don't see how you have something that's like 20% weaker than a PS5 sell for more than $500. I mean, this thing is going to be pretty long in the tooth even by the time it launches.
No, that makes sense. You have successfully convinced me that I think like even 600 would be a lot for it. Like that sounds,
Personally, I think it would be. Now, who knows where this goes, though? I believe they probably already bought all the RAM they'll need for the first month or two of production. If they have, they don't have that much to worry about. If they haven't, I don't know, maybe they should just cancel this because I don't think it's going to do well at $1,000 against a $400 PS5. So
Do we know if it uses DDR5?
Yeah, it has. We don't know the speed yet, but I would almost bet money it's DDR5 4800 as well. So like the cheapest of the cheap RAM.
Okay. Yeah. But still DDR5 though. So it's still
yes.
Like current gen.
Yeah. Well, yes. Current gen in a year where like DDR5 9600 will be launching.
That's true.
Kind of like current gen in that, you had modern DDR4, even if it was like 2400 megahertz, like, I guess that's modern, but most of us are on 3600.
But I mean, how different is the production? Like like, I guess it's like a binning issue, right? Is how they separate out what is.
So I'm certainly not an expert on this, but my understanding would be the benefit of having DDR5 4800 is, yes, you have access to anyone who makes DDR5. Like you don't have to only buy from the fastest from Samsung. But on top of that, there are Chinese companies, like smaller companies in Asia that buy up old machinery. And like when Samsung shifts to making DDR5, 8,000 for Zen 6 at the end of next year, they will have sold their old machinery that could only make up to 4,800. And so then there will be, more mid-range or really budget companies that will buy that up. And then that's where you'll see on Amazon, like Expogo Cat Gamer, like this weird, never before seen Temu brand of RAM that's spitting out DDR5 4800 for a ridiculously low price. It's because they bought up the old machinery and their margins are pretty low.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. What are the chances of Valve buying up the machinery and then making their own cheap DDR5?
I think there's a chance OpenAI may do that just to spite.
Yeah, that's true.
Spite everybody.
Because Sam Altman is a RAM pervert apparently. Like, what in the world?
But yeah, so I don't know. I still think though, I still have a lot of optimism for the Steam machine, assuming it's not above. Again, I think 650, if I squint, is the highest I can see it.
Especially for those specs.
Yeah, like I still think though, if they actually did something cool, like they did like 550 with 2 terabytes and a controller, 450 with no controller or something like that, because I can tell you I already have a controller. I don't need to buy one. You know, I think that's the sort of thing, like right when Xbox, I don't know if you saw this, but the Next Playground outsold the Xbox during Black Friday.
Oh, what? No, I didn't. That's crazy.
The kids console is now outselling Xbox. They think it may have sold only a couple 100,000 on Black Friday week, which is just nuts. Like, there's clearly a lot of people with Xboxes that want to switch. And if you had an Xbox Series S and then they dropped like a $450 to $550 Series S killer that can still play a lot of your other all of your Steam games or something, I think you get all of the people leaving Xbox to come to Steam Machine. Or at least you have a chance. There will be people who are too stubborn to go to PlayStation or don't want to build their own PC.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, that's exciting. Do we know when it's coming out?
I think they just said early 2026, so they might not even know yet. Maybe they're still trying to figure out what's going on with RAM. I don't know, but we'll see on that. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on Magnus, the Xbox one. I mean, it's a more kind of the same thing, but more expensive. It's interesting, in my opinion, because a year after Steam Machine, they're kind of trying to do the same playbook, but it'll cost much more. I think another thing to point out with it that's cool is the chiplet for the graphics is the same as a mid-range graphics card.
Yeah,
with RDNA 5. I think that's going to make the like driver support on that like insane. Like that's going to be what all devs target as the next high-end GPU or mid-range, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think it has the potential to be really cool. If that sounds like an exciting console. Because they do really need a win on the Xbox side, you know. So I think that if they bring out like a powerful enough like PC replacement kind of thing, it could be awesome.
Yeah, my biggest concern though is, well, number one, they got to make sure they find some wonky way to play Xbox games with backwards compatibility. I have a hunch they'll find a way to do that. That'd be cool, kind of like, because when the Dreamcast died, you were just screwed. But if Xbox dies and they're like, but we do have this PC that can play your old Xbox games, that's kind of a nice consolation prize for their old fans, to not abandon them on this like island with no more support. But I would say the biggest concern I have when I see the specs, though, is I do think they're targeting like $1,200. And I don't know if you knew this, like I think it's like 70 to 80% of Xbox Series sales are Series S. So that means the overwhelming majority of Xbox fans right now bought the cheap console. Yeah. And if they announce something that costs 4 times as much as what they paid, that's where I'm like, maybe they just go to the Steam Machine instead. That's my biggest concern, is that Microsoft making this like a high-end device. That's not what people actually bought the Series consoles for most of the time. Yeah,
I guess maybe, I mean, this is just me kind of spitballing here, but maybe the reason why the Series S sold the best was because the Series X wasn't as competitive against the PlayStation, so people bought the PS5 instead, who were shopping in that price range. So it meant that kind of by default, people who bought Xboxes happened to buy up in the price range where the PlayStation wasn't competing. So maybe Microsoft's strategy here is to try and like overcut the PlayStation so that they're not directly competing with it anymore, because they feel like they keep losing to it. But I don't know. Like I said, I just made that up. Like, I don't know if...
No, well, there were 2 things to that as well. So the Xbox Series S die was like 2/3 to not half, but like it was a lot smaller die than the Series X, and that was during manufacturing shortages during COVID. And so what I always kind of heard is there was this like calculation to prioritize Series S production because they could make 3 Series S's for every 2 PlayStations, and maybe that would help them get more market share for Game Pass, but they never really followed through on that because they raised the price of Game Pass. So that argument, I don't think they really saw that argument through. But yeah, I do think you're onto something though, like giving up, because they really, really tried with the Xbox One X and then the Series X to have a better version of what Sony had. And both times it either just wasn't seen as worth it for the money, or they failed actually to make something stronger for the same price. And so maybe I don't know, the Xbox has always been obsessed since the PS4 with being able to claim they have the strongest console. And maybe that's all it is they want to be able to claim it, because if they're even remotely the same performance as the PS6, everyone will just get the PS6. I don't know what you think about that though, because I think like a major misreading of the PS4 gen is that it won because it had more teraflops. It won I think, because it was cheaper and had more games.
Yeah, and games that were more exclusive to it. Like I think the more that the Xbox tried to just be a gaming or like a little PC, the less appealing it became, because the reason why you buy a console as opposed to a PC is for the exclusive titles or whatever that is that you can only get on that. So when you started getting Halo and all of that stuff, like not just being a console exclusive, but with the PlayStation, you still have a bunch of these games that you have to buy a PlayStation to get. Then you buy the PlayStation and then a gaming PC or whatever.
Yeah, and I know I'm sure there's some people in the comments right now saying, "Oh, there's not that many PlayStation exclusives anymore."
It's true,
and it's like, sure, but Death Stranding 2 still isn't on PC. Demon's Souls isn't on PC. And like, even if it's just like 10 games, that's
Gran Turismo 7.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
Yeah, that's probably still enough where if it's a tie, you're like, well, I might as well get the one that has even one game I can't get on PC. Right. Yeah. Like I think Sony still keeps some exclusives because it's a pretty big tiebreaker.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Well, speaking of games, Jensen Wang, all will be in video, writes in and says, will GTA 6 be the premier game to play on gamers' newly bought PS6s and Xbox Magnus consoles, or whatever they end up naming it? And would GTA 5 have been that for the PS4 and Xbox One if they had backwards compatibility at launch? My answer is yes. Like, I think that's going to be a big selling point of PS6 as well.
I agree, but the second part of that question where they say that GTA 5 would have been that if they had backwards compatibility at launch, but you could get GTA 5 on like a PS3 and stuff.
Right, but he's saying you couldn't get it on the PS4 when the PS4 came out, just like a year after the PS4 came out.
Oh, I see, so, like, I see.
I think either way,
the launch is better or whatever.
I think either way, it probably drove PS4 sales a lot eventually. But
for sure, yeah.
But yes, I think what he's saying is, do you think there's a chance, like, because a substantial amount of people have PS4 still that refuse to get a PS5, there's a chance that, like, who knows, that could change. GTA 6 comes out and then everyone finally upgrades from their PS4 and Xbox Ones. Or maybe they just wait till PS6. Like that's an interesting thing to watch as well. I think it will be a big seller of PS6 actually.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Like, especially if GTA 6 might still take a while before it comes out. So if it comes out at the same time as the PS6, it will definitely,
or even just a year before,
Exactly. Yeah. Even like a similar, it will definitely help. Yeah. Because that's been one of the biggest issues with every console generations for a while now, has been like, even the PS4, when it first came out, there were no games on it. There was like no reason to buy one. Yeah, there was a Killzone,
but it was one of the worst ones.
Yeah.
The online was good. It wasn't as good as the other Killzones though.
Okay.
I would say I was a pretty big Killzone 2 and 3 fan. And yeah, I don't remember what else there was. Like,
it took ages for it to actually have a fleshed out library. And it was the same for the PS5, it's the same for the Nintendo. So yeah, GTA 6 would be a huge boon for whatever console generation comes out in close vicinity to it, for sure.
All right, let me switch gears here again. So it's not just, I want to bring up like the RDNA 5 of it all in general. It's not just that there's this mid-range die that's supposed to be like $500 to $600, or the final graphics card is supposed to be like $500 to $600, specifically when document said targeting $550 for whatever succeeds the 9070 XT.
Yeah.
That chiplet is in the Xbox, but then there's also a AT0 chiplet that goes up to at least 154 compute units, 384-bit bus, like some absurdly huge RDNA 5 chip. And then below that, though, is AT3, which is probably the 9060 XT successor. That shares its graphics chiplet from the graphics card with Medusa Halo. So they can mix and match between those APUs. And there's something else I've seen called Little Medusa Halo, and that shares the AT4 graphics chiplet with 24 compute units with an APU that would go into thin and light laptops. So this is, I think, the Zen 2 moment of graphics cards. So this won't be next year, but this would be 2027. But I still wonder what you think about this idea that, like, when I saw this, I was actually disappointed.
Oh, really?
Well, I was disappointed because my video, and I think I could have done a better thumbnail, but I think the video didn't perform as well as any of my PlayStation, Xbox videos,
Oh, I see.
And I was like, really? No one here cares that I just confirmed the Zen 2 moments happening with graphics cards? Finally, they're sharing products between CPU, APU, and GPU.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I wonder what you think. And by the way, the craziest part of that, or what could be one of the craziest, is think about what that means. So so the graphics chiplet also has the memory controller. So, Xbox will use GDDR7, and so will desktop. Makes sense. No one thinks that's weird. But they're still going to use LPDDR5X, for example, on AT4 APUs and GPUs, meaning it has, I think it was like a 128-bit LPDDR5X memory interface for even probably the dedicated low-end RDNA 5 GPU, meaning that they don't need to spend money on GDDR6 or GDDR7, which might be able to help them out, but also means technically there's 128 gigabyte laptops. If they wanted to, they could make a low-end dedicated card. I don't think they will, but they could make one that's like, 64 gigabytes. And AT3 has a 384-bit LPDDR6 bus as well. So if they wanted to, they could have like a 256 gigabyte or whatever dedicated card. So I think this opens up crazy options. Like you could see, I don't think they'll go to that much, but I think like the whatever it is, the path tracing 1060 XT, whatever they call it, I think they could give that 24 gigabytes of RAM for like $400. That would be, I think it's really interesting, the options they have for low-end GPUs with the next generation.
Yeah, and I mean, if they were able to do that, I think that would give them a huge leg up in terms of kind of workstation applications for GPUs, because that's the entire reason why people spend like $4,000 for a 9050 for AI work, is because it's got so much video memory in it. Or it's not the entire reason, but it's like a big part of it is, you need that huge memory amount. So it could help for like budget workstation applications as well.
Yeah, so I don't know how much there's to really say, but I will say this. I'm just like, oh, man, I don't want this. I want NVIDIA to give us enough RAM with their graphics cards, but
yeah.
The amount I would laugh if the 6060 had like 8 gigabytes and then AMD's competitor had like 24.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Like it's already like the 5060 I've heard is the first 60 series to like sell decently worse than its predecessor. And I think it's because of the RAM, and
yeah.
I don't know. I think this is really creative too. And it almost makes me wonder why we haven't seen other people try things like this, like creative ways of getting more memory in the low end, like just give it a bigger bus and cheaper memory.
Yeah. And I think that the chiplet design is so cool because it kind of helps with the more APU side of it as well. Like you're developing them together as opposed to like
it's one driver stack.
Yeah, which is really
I didn't
really
think about
cool.
that too, because I think a big reason RDNA 4 has such good drivers compared to the previous gens is they have 2 dies and they're done. They only have 2 they have to support. And with this, if you think about it, because like with RDNA 3, they had Navi 31, 32, 33, Phoenix, and like Little Phoenix. So they had like 2 APUs, 3 dedicated dies. Now they'll have AT0, 2, 3, and 4, and that's it. They're actually programming for 4 GPUs instead of 5, and they'll have twice as many products.
Yeah.
That's Yeah, and they have to because they don't have the same amount of money as Nvidia. So I think I didn't think about that. That's actually a very good point.
Yeah, so I think that's cool. Like I'm excited for that. So you said you're expecting kind of 2027.
I think probably late 27, honestly. So I think it's gonna be a long time before we see these. That's why there's probably still room for an RDNA 4 refresh. It'll just probably be and it'll probably be, let's be honest, the end of next year instead of early next year. This piece of content is brought to you by the Minis Forum BD790i X3D. This gaming ITX platform is incredible. It gives you, for the price of what would normally just be a single 16-core desktop processor, just the processor, you get a 16-core V-Cache processor, a motherboard, Wi-Fi, and cooling all built into one package. It is an incredible cost-saving platform that also gives you a lot of high-end features that you often can't find anywhere else, like the ability to have two M.2 Gen 5 SSDs and have that in a package that isn't ATX size. I actually think this is the only place you can find this, and the fact that it's cheaper than an alternative build is just absolutely crazy. Now, here's the coolest thing, though, about the 7945HX3D processor that's in this. Yes, that's technically a laptop processor, but in this motherboard, they have it run up to 100 watts, which is more than most laptops would do, but of course, much less than a normal desktop processor, so you're saving energy, actually, comparatively, and it achieves 90% of the multi-threading performance and 95% of the single-threading performance and the same gaming performance as the desktop variant. So you're basically getting desktop-class performance with laptop-class power consumption and paying, I don't know, half the price of trying to build something similar with alternative components. And so I really do recommend this thing, and I recommend the Minis Forum motherboards in general. Check out their website. Dan, co-host of Broken Silicon, uses one of their motherboards in his main system, and I was just holding one there in front of you because I'm going to set it up in one of my main systems as well. I think products like this are the future. You get more for less, and you even get cool, unique features. So please support Moore's Law is Dead by checking out the Minis Forum BD790i X3D ITX gaming motherboard today. Well, continuing this conversation in a way, Zen 6 and Zen 7, I had all these little data points in the initial notes I sent you, but I just combined it all together. I don't know if you have any thoughts, but from what I'm seeing, Zen 6 and 7 look incredible compared to the previous gens. So they're targeting around 7 gigahertz by going to the N2X node, A14 nodes, hundreds of megabytes of V-cache, finally more than 16 cores on desktop, low power cores for background tasks. And by the way, this is important. They're not low power E-cores. They're low power same cores. So the Zen 6 low power cores can run games. Like they can do the same. Okay. I don't think they will run the game. They'll probably run that on the other cores. But I think it's worth pointing out that these are like actually 2 real cores that you're getting with every APU in addition to the other C and non-C cores. So I don't know what my question is. Thoughts? Excited or?
I think I think the thing that's the most impressive to me is just how different. And I mean, I guess the kind of surrounding situation is different, but if you compare what Intel was doing in their market dominant phase with the like quad core dark ages, they were just sitting on their laurels so hard, whereas AMD they're still working hard to make better products, and I think that's pretty cool. I'm excited for it.
So there's I think it was Karino Sugata, who's a contributor to Moore's Law is Dead. He brought up a good point months ago, and I was like starting to talk to him behind the scenes about what's going on. He said, well, if you think about it, there was this, Jim Keller worked at Intel before. There was that Royal Core project that got canceled and Intel laid off. All these people working on, from what I heard, they were going to try to double IPC and like a insane new way of doing processing that Jim Keller was working on. Like, right. Well, architectures and things take like 4 to 5 years to plan. So AMD would have been planning Zen 6 and Zen 7 when they were hearing that Jim Keller was working on this insane stuff at Intel. And so they probably were planning to go all out because they thought they were going to be competing with like the next Sandy Bridge. That's what they thought was going to happen. And whether or not Intel has anything worthwhile in the future, AMD is assuming they will, And so I think that's where you see them going, going firmly for the premium crown. Like, if you really think about it, Zen 5 is kind of like a budget CPU compared to Arrow Lake. It doesn't have 3 nanometer. It's using the same chiplet layout Zen 2 used. It almost looks lazy, honestly.
Yeah, that's that is a good point. That because of how. So does that mean 4 years from now we're going to get a really terrible Zen launch?
Terrible one?
Yeah.
That's not a bad point. I don't know. My suspicion is what we're going to see is tons more focus on laptop. Like AMD is going to go, guys, we won gaming. I mean, even right now, Zen 5 X3D is like, what, 35% faster than the fastest Intel processor in gaming? Like, this is like Haswell versus pile driver margins we're starting to see here. And so if I had to guess, most of their spending right now is on dominating laptop in a few years.
Well, they're gonna have to go ARM to do that properly. I don't know how well x86 is suited to laptops. Now that I am an Apple user.
Well, so I think that's just because Apple has a better product, though. I mean, because we saw Snapdragon make ARM laptops, and boy, did those suck.
Well, the thing is, so okay, I have one of those.
Okay,
and
all right.
They because I like bought one for a video when it initially came out, and initially it was a dumpster fire. But as the driver support has increased, so it's still not a gaming device, but it has a lot of the benefits that the MacBook has, in that its battery life is infinite, basically. It doesn't make any noise. It doesn't generate heat. Like the whole that whole kind of hardware efficiency superiority vibe that MacBook has, the Snapdragon device also has, just as not as a workstation, as like a browsing the internet thing. So I think ARM still has a chance to become like super impactful for like efficiency based stuff, because even those bad Snapdragon products still have those advantages.
Yeah, I will say though, have you tried is your Strix Halo system a laptop?
No, it's a like a framework like mini desktop thing.
So I have a Strix Halo laptop, and I've also heard this for Lunar Lake. People with Lunar Lake say that thing lasts forever.
In terms of battery life, okay.
Yeah, for Strix Halo, I mean, I think this is also kind of just an AMD thing, but I tend to read my laptop before I go to bed. So I'll pull up some news reports, turn down the brightness to the minimum, which has a crazy ultra low brightness mode on my laptop too. And I just kind of lay in bed, and then if I'm being honest, I read one sentence and fall asleep. And then my laptop will or I don't even open the laptop. I sit down with the laptop next to me, and but I have it so that it doesn't turn off for 8 hours or something if I turn it on, because I will turn it off when I want to turn it off. Please do not put it to sleep while I'm doing something. And I wake up and it's lost 2% battery life.
Okay, that's cool.
So
that's definitely better than my experience with a lot of Windows laptops.
So I think if you're using the latest x86, which is to say Lunar Lake or the newest Strix systems, I think they're pretty close to the Snapdragon. If you turn on all of the low power mode stuff the Snapdragon has on by default.
Yeah. And the Snapdragon, it's not like that battery life exists not in a heavy use case. There's, it's like browsing the internet or whatever.
You want to know another funny thing? A developer told me this. They also think a big reason why the Snapdragon systems on Windows often have good battery life is because they actually had to write new code for Windows, because all of this legacy crap is running on x86 systems. And
that's a really interesting
they're just but Windows, they actually had to do their job and make it work without legacy code. That's also a reason why, I don't know if you play Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition. In my experience, way less bugs. Actually, no bugs compared to the other Metro titles. I asked a game developer why they thought that was, and they said because they had to rewrite the code for ray tracing. And so all of their old crap in the old version of the engine is probably what's making the games crash. So I think there's an argument here that ARM runs well on Windows because, has a decent idle battery life on Windows because they actually had to write new code for it.
Yeah. No, that's true.
But AMD does have Soundwave coming, but I think it's a budget ARM CPU. And I think it'll be very telling how well Nvidia's APUs do when they come out next year, because they're supposed to come out this year, never did. But Nvidia's supposed to have APUs next year. And if those are really efficient, if those crush everyone in battery life, then I think we have an argument here.
So do we think it's going to happen? Like APU dies are huge, and like that's TSMC space they're taking up for they could be making H200s on. Do we think?
So you want to know what I've heard is that it should launch early next year, first half. Maybe it'll even be announced at CES. We'll see. But that the reason it's been delayed so much is, yes, certainly they found out they can sell their stupid AI mini PC for $3,000 with the same APU. So let's do that instead of a $1,200 laptop. But on top of that, I've heard the amount of bugs they've had is horrible, like horrible. They're like, and they're still like, I've talked to people who are, I won't say where, but like these are people helping finish the code, develop, test these APUs, like, not on a laptops all the time, but like they literally have these test motherboards where they're like trying to work out the bugs, and they're still crushing bugs a year later after they're supposed to launch. So I've heard that like it seems like Nvidia thought it would be easy to make a good APU for Windows, and what they're finding is no, actually AMD is good at this because they've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, because it makes sense that Windows is the limiting factor there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, and people have tried to use get different versions of Linux to run, and it's also full of bugs on Linux unless you are only doing AI stuff, basically.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's actually a pretty buggy chip. Like if it doesn't come out,
I see.
I think it's just because they couldn't get it to work, kind of like Alchemist. You know what I mean? Like their first try at something new just had a lot of problems.
Yeah. That's fair.
Techno writes in, would it be possible and worthwhile to have 9-core SKUs on Zen 6, or they continue to stick with even numbers? So I threw this in here just because I knew we would talk about it, but everything I've seen says even numbers. So I can't tell you what they will do, but I haven't seen like, ooh, here's this 9-core engineering sample. Yeah. I think it might be possible with Zen 7 because they are going to have 33-core chiplets for server with Zen 7. So who knows? But I still think in consumer, it's even number. I don't know. I think odd number CPUs could be cool, but I just think there's probably a reason we're not seeing anybody doing that.
Yeah. I mean, there was that thing with wasn't there a 3-core Bulldozer CPU that you could unlock the 4th core on?
There were for Phenom and Athlon, right? I don't remember. I don't think there were for Bulldozer. The only other example I can come up with.
Phenom makes sense.
What was it? The Foveros, whatever lake it was. I keep forgetting the name of it, but that 1+4 APU Intel had that was supposedly going to be in that like fold out little micro laptop thing from Microsoft, and then that thing never came out. Yeah. But like that's all I can think of, and in that case, well, that was E-cores, so that's why it was an odd number. Let me see here. Techno also writes in, when did AMD switch Zen 7 over to DDR5 to a DDR6 one? Because Zen 7 is going to come to AM5. I just wrote this again to answer this since we were talking about it. But my understanding is Zen 4 was considered to go on AM4 as well. And it would have probably used the Zen 3 Plus IO die that they never got close to finishing. And so for a multitude of reasons, that didn't happen. But with Zen 7, I think they probably were working on an IO die in case they wanted to use it on AM6. But otherwise, it just is compatible with the Zen 6 IO die. So this idea of like, when did Zen 7 switch to DDR5? I don't think it did. It just uses the same IO die as Zen 6, just like Zen 5 uses the Zen 4 IO die, and yada, 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 yada. And they probably made the decision that upon seeing that Intel's probably going to support a bunch of CPUs on their next motherboard, probably a good idea to have Zen 7 on AM5 so that Intel can't claim that Zen 6 is a dead end.
Oh, I see. That's all kind of above my pay grade. That was that was very difficult for me to follow.
That's fine, but speaking of difficult to follow, Nova Lake, Razor Lake, Titan Lake, Hammer Lake, any thoughts on upcoming Intel processors?
they gotta figure something out. Like it's either sink or swim for them at this point. So I'm gonna hope it's good for their sake, so that like something good has to come out of Intel soon.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any thoughts? From what I've heard, Hammer Lake will be the first APU out of Intel to use Nvidia chiplets. I think that's awesome, though. I don't know what you think of that. Cool.
Yeah. No, that sounds cool. Like I mean, even though like the Intel iGPUs have been reasonably impressive, like some of the Arc iGPUs have been faring decently. So it'll be cool to see how much they can push that with Nvidia chiplets.
Yeah, I imagine that would make you much more likely to buy a laptop that has no graphics card with Intel if it says Intel, and then you also know it has an Nvidia chiplet with Nvidia driver support, right? Like that makes you much more likely to buy.
No, exactly. Yeah, because I just really want to give Jensen more money. Like that's what he needs. So
I know, but at the end of the day, I just want good products, and
yeah.
The problem with getting an Intel APU is they're selling Raptor Lake refresh chips right now that they've rebranded as part of like whatever it is, the Core 200 series, and they don't even they've already dropped driver support for the integrated graphics.
Whoa, that's a brave move. That's crazy.
Like it's not even like when AMD on a couple APUs dropped support 2 years after they launched, which is crummy, but they're literally selling APUs with legacy drivers, and that's like so you know, do I want Nvidia to be a monopoly? No, but I would like, because from my perspective, it's like AMD already almost has monopoly on laptop, because I'm not buying an Intel one that doesn't have driver support. So
no, for sure, that's crazy.
All right, we have some final questions here, and we already talked about it a little, but we'll see where this goes. Timo H writes in, did you have any of these 2025 events on your bingo card, like RAM prices? I did. I thought prices would go up at the end of the year. I said it, but I thought it was, well, and it still probably is partially, but it was mostly due to tariffs and uncertainty. I'm guys, I think prices are going to go up at the end of the year, so you should buy now. I guess you could say I'm right. I did not know that OpenAI would buy up the world's RAM supply, though.
Yeah, I didn't have a bingo card, so I feel like I should make one for next year, because I don't remember any of my predictions. Like I mean, slept on that.
I guess we can switch to just what has been the most surprising thing to you from this year. Like, is there like, or is we've already pretty much talked about most of what happened this year. So, but I wonder.
Yeah, most surprising.
I got one.
Okay.
I still hear the B770 in some form might come out. I did not have on my bingo card that when Raja Kaduri said it was going to launch in 2023, that would actually be in 2026. Because even I thought Battle Mage would come out in like 24 or 23, and that would be it. They would be done and give up. I still think they're done. I did not know that they would still try to launch it 3 years late, and maybe they won't. You know, but I don't think they should. But I mean, it's. Could you imagine if they were like preparing Lovelace right now? Like, why even bother if it's that late?
Yeah. Maybe they just found some alien tech in the Roswell like UFO that they just took real long to perfect, and it's
gonna beat the 5090. Yeah.
It's gonna beat the 5090.
Yeah, I don't know. I continue to think if they launched it should be professional only, because I actually hear the professional graphics cards for the price. A lot of people like them, but I can't.
Yeah.
It would be so sad. At least the B580 got okay reviews. If the last graphics card they launch is this thing, which I hear has a lot of bugs in the hardware compared to the B580, so more bugs than it. If they launch a buggy mess that is like a $500 9060 XT, and that's the last card they launch, is that how you want to go out? I don't know.
No, it really isn't. The B580 is a good note to go out on. Yeah,
I would hope so.
That's fair.
Let me see. I'm gonna skip this question here. There's just a lot of RAM questions, but I don't know. Like, there's someone talking about pre-built systems and like why you can get good deals on Costco. My answer would be because they already paid the money for the RAM, and that's why it's still cheap. If you want it, you should probably get it. how will RAM affect the longevity of existing systems? Long term, I don't think it will at all. Short term, I think a lot of people won't be upgrading next year.
Yeah. Which it's just the poor people that has a system die on them or something that has to brave the waters of this madness.
But that's why I keep saying, and I saw a rumor go. I won't get into it again for the fans who've heard me beat a dead horse, but like WCCF Tech put out this article saying actually SSDs will be fine next year. I'm like, no, they will not. And it's like, I just can't. Guys, don't miss the boat. If you need something, get it right now. I already have enough backup RAM and SSDs. I'm fine, but I really think you guys have, like, when this comes out, one more week before a bunch of price increases are announced in January. So and it's going to be everything as well. It's not just PC stuff. Like, it's going to be any consumer device that has RAM. Any brain in it, basically. Yeah. The only thing that will probably be a good deal is I bet like the 9950X3D2, 9850X3D, that doesn't have RAM in it, and you can put it in an existing system. So that will probably be one of the lone things that's fairly priced. But that's about it. You can get a cheap OLED. You'd be able to get a real good OLED next year, maybe. I will say that as well, as next year, get a new monitor. I actually can't believe how cheap good monitors are now. Oh, they've gotten so cheap. Yeah, you can get a good OLED for, because like all OLEDs are good. Like, you don't really get a bad OLED. So you can get them for a great deal now. Yeah, I just had, it was a Concept D 4K 144, but really 4K 120 because you need 2 DisplayPort cables to get to 144. It was one of those old ones. And if you do that, there's just nothing but flickering issues with using 2 cables at once. So it's really a 4K 120 IPS screen. I got it for like $900 in 2021, I think. Whoa. And for the time, that was good when there were $2,000 4K 120 monitors, Yeah. That finally broke. And I got a Dell 4K 120 IPS for $200. This is better than my old one. And it costs a fourth as much. I mean, the OLED, I got it like for $800, $700, a 4K 240 OLED. So I will say next year, upgrade CPUs and monitors, because that stuff's going to be so and I think they will sell less monitors because less people will be building systems, which means the monitors will become probably even cheaper. Yo, you say OLED properly. That's crazy. I think you're like the only person I've ever heard say it correctly. Well, OLED. Like, I just always say OLED, which is like you say it as one word, which is like the lazy way to say it, whereas you do it correctly. That's I am very impressed. I've never thought about it, but I suppose there's a lot of things though that I say weird. I'm sure you noticed when you started YouTube, there were all these words you were saying with your friends, and you didn't know that everyone would correct you if you said it that way. Yeah, I mean, I have a weird accent, so I get so many people telling me that I fake my accent all the time. They're like, "No, it can't be real. Like, why? No one speaks like you do," and I'm like, "Well, what do you want from me? Like, I don't. I come from a different place. Like, what do you want from me? You're not like pretending to be a posh British person. Like, why would this be a fake accent?" Yeah. I'm really riding off the great reputation that South Africans have, or whatever. Like, come on, what in the world? Just drafting back off of that history that everyone really likes. Yeah, exactly. Everybody just likes. Yeah. No, it's like so the funny. Big South African movies, Blood Diamond, District 9. Like, I want to be associated with those plot points, please. Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah, so it's weird. People are weird. I actually get that a ton as well, because I'm from Minnesota, but then like I grew up like around Chicago and Michigan, and so kind of I've got like your basic kind of Jim Gaffigan Midwest accent, but then I still say sorry, like pillow. Oh yeah, I say a bunch of like, and if I want to, I can totally talk like I'm from Fargo, because that's what half of my family members sound like. Cool. And so I have this weird, and then I also like lived in England a little bit. So then like I'll say bloody. So I'll say I'm bloody sorry, and I'll get you a nice hot dish for Christmas. Like I have a combination of like 3 accents. That's very, it's also not an act. I didn't choose, to sound like someone from North Dakota got hit with a bat.
Yeah. You saw Fargo and you're like, whoa, I really need to integrate some of that into my. Yeah, it's weird how people are like, your accent doesn't fit into my idea of what a voice should sound like. Therefore, you're a phony or whatever. It's so weird.
All right. I guess one more question. Compressed AI Blocks writes in, how do you feel about the health of the PC market? From a do-it-yourself consumer standpoint, it seems not great. Speaking to others who work with you or OEMs, system integrators, I also get that sentiment from them. Well, yeah, look, OEMs and system integrators are terrified of 2026 due to the RAM thing. So they're in it with us. Yeah. They're not excited to charge more for a laptop. No. It's higher than historical pricing. It seems you're saying I can accept that to a degree, but compounded with everything else financially, plus seemingly more aggressive boom and bust hardware cycles, it sometimes makes it feel not worth it until I finish my PC. Winking smiley face. Yeah, I think, I gotta say, I think we're just done with the era of, I've given this speech a few times now. Like, I think a lot of people came to their formidable opinions and like shape their worldview on the market between 2005 and like 2015. That was like the PC gaming renaissance, Steam sales, and Steam didn't have competitors. You didn't have 10 launchers on PC. Like that was kind of the golden era. If you look at like editors at tech websites, a lot of them are in their early 40s. They came up in the like the 2000s, early 2010s. And during that time, everything got so dirt cheap. But at the same time, that's when Moore's Law died. And we were on 28 nanometer for 5 years straight. So like, things got cheap because nothing was getting better. And I think when you look at the performance differences of some products, like compare Sandy Bridge to Skylake and then compare Zen 1 to Zen 5. And the difference is comical. And so from my perspective, it's like, a lot of things are more expensive, but like also we're getting way more performance. Like with the death of Moore's Law comes Jensen's Law, but Jensen's Law of charging more is getting us a lot more performance. So I don't know. I also think if you game in 1080p, you can just get a $200 mini PC at this point too. So I don't know what you think, but I have to say we're not even in 2026 yet. Technically, you can still find graphics cards for below MSRP and $600 OLED 240, even $300 OLED 240 1440p monitors. So it's hard for me to think it's the worst it's ever been though.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it might be similar to what's happening in the games industry, where AAA games have sucked for so long that people are really frustrated with it, and like every single launch is just some issue. So then people are shifting more to the indie game space because the indie game market is just so exploding with creativity at the moment, and all of those games require so much less hardware. So I think that it's going to be, I think that the market is still going to be healthy. I think the dynamics are just going to shift. So you're going to have a bigger group of people that are going to be gaming on some like, they bought an RX 580 from AliExpress
or a Steam machine.
No money. Or a Steam machine, exactly. They're going to buy that kind of hardware, and that's going to be their main focus, is real budget kind of like you get a rig your own thing together to play these amazing indie games, which is where most of the passion in the industry exists anyway. And I think that, there's going to be more of a focus on stuff like that because of how untenable the higher end has become. Because like, not only is the hardware more expensive and becoming less easy to access, but the games that you want to play with that hardware all suck now. Like, the AAA games are when was the last time Ubisoft made a game that didn't make everybody want to just assault them?
They just make too many. I mean, and I think you see a similar announcement from Call of Duty where they're like, we're done making back-to-back series. And I don't know why. I remember I actually thought Black Ops 6 was a pretty fun game. And then they announced 7. I'm like, I just played 6. Why is there... But, I will say the only thing I'd push back on is I thought Death Stranding 2 was excellent. I think Battlefield 6 is the first good excellent Battlefield since 1. You could argue other ones were good. This was an excellent one compared to the others.
But again, with Battlefield 6, it runs on lower end hardware pretty well.
Because they know what they're doing.
There will also be exactly, and it's the same with a game like Arc Raiders. I don't know if you've played that.
I have not, but I've heard the same thing.
It is so good. You should really play it. It is. I love it so much. So that game is AAA adjacent, but the developers understand that you can't just use Unreal Engine 5 and make an unplayable mess on a 5090 because nobody wants to deal with that anymore. Everybody's sick of that issue. So if you make a game that looks decent, it doesn't have to have all of the bells and whistles. It just needs to look like give me a good art style over good graphics. Just have the game run properly, and then people will buy the game and it'll do well. So I think there is kind of a change of sentiment in how the market is functioning away from AAA.
It'll be interesting to see how GTA
goes.
6 runs as well, because I think that'll probably be an excellent game. And I imagine for the graphics you get, it's going to run pretty well on an old $400 box as well.
And it would have to, in my opinion, for it to have people not complain about it. I think that because it's initially just going to be a console game, right? It's going to take ages for the PC port to come out. So I think that because it's a console game, it already counts as a less graphically demanding game because you don't need a 5090 or whatever, like if that makes sense. I don't know how coherent my argument is here, but like it's not like GTA 6 also for a long time isn't going to be a game that you're going to spend $2,000 to buy a PC for. So that's just my prediction in how the kind of state of hardware and PC gaming as an industry is going to move away from just having all the shiny bells and whistles to let us just have good content again, Well,
and when I speak with developers, there's a lot of them that think, because I think you could almost say we're noticing a trend here. Like you're noticing the new Battlefield runs great. The new Death Stranding 2 runs great. The Arc Raiders runs well. There's a lot of new games that seem to actually run pretty god dang well. And I think a lot of developers, when they were shifting to Unreal Engine 5, are really just, when going from a PS4 that has a hard drive to a PS5 that has an SSD and goes from like whatever it was, effectively like 7 1.6 gigahertz Jaguar cores to 8 3.5 gigahertz Zen 2 cores with hyperthreading. They were just like, whoa, we can do anything. And they could do anything. But I think this, a prediction I have is that this was the generation where developers caught up to the hardware with their software. And it's an unfortunate casualty because when I look at the PS6 specs, what I've seen is that it seems to be built to do entirely new capabilities. Like it's not focusing on raster. Its raster will be like 50% double what the PS5 Pro is, but its ray tracing performance will be like 10-12x the ray tracing, actually perfected upscaling, enough RAM to do AI well. I think what you're going to see is, sorry that there wasn't like as exciting of a bunch of games on the PS5 as there was on the PS4, or certainly on the 360 and PS3. But at the same time, the PS3 and 360 actually were quite a buggy mess. And
they were.
I just think they were kind of catching up. And I think actually next gen, they're going to know what works. Like you said, like Battlefield 6 doesn't have ray tracing. Battlefield 2042 did, and they're going to go, and then like some games like Death Stranding 2 looks photorealistic. And then there's some games that have ray tracing now that actually run very well, like Doom. And then there's others that do not. And I think by next gen, they're done experimenting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And frankly, they kind of had to support PS4 until like 10 days ago. So like they still were basically like had this boat anchor there dragging with them while they tried to make futuristic games. I think that was also a huge issue.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I wonder how much that played into why Cyberpunk was such a disaster when it came out, because that had to also run.
Should not have bothered with the previous.
Yeah, they really shouldn't have. No, not at all.
No, yeah, that's another thing I sometimes rant about is I don't know if you remember, but I certainly do. I was excited for the Xbox Series X and PS5, and I remember when they came out, and then like half of the comments were, how dare you want next gen games? I can't afford to upgrade from my PS4. And I've always been like, well, you got your wish, sweetheart. You know, they kept making PS4 games, and that's why a lot of them look the same. So I hope you're happy.
Yeah.
But all right. On that note, Manilis Rakusis writes in, Tom, just want to say a big thank you to you and Dawid and everyone else who was involved with this. Here's hoping to an even better 2026. Yeah, I don't know about the first half of the year, but I think by the end of next year we're going to be in a better place. I think we will be. That's my prediction.
I like your optimism. I will not weigh in then.
You were just gonna say it always gets darkest before it gets darker. That's what you.
Yeah, exactly. Just doom for 10 minutes, and then that's my prediction.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure in a year we will see if I was wrong.
I hope you weren't. I really hope you're right.
Yeah. Well, I will say it will be an interesting year. I can predict that.
It will be. Yeah. No. Exactly. Like regardless of what happens, it will be interesting. Yeah.
But once again, my friend Dawid, thank you so much for coming on for this end of year episode. Please tell everybody where they can find you.
So I just do YouTube. I have no other social media. So go look for me. Dawid Does Tech Stuff on YouTube. And yeah, hopefully you'll enjoy some tech things happening. Thank you very much for having me. I always enjoy this end of year roundup because it's always very informative because I don't always follow a lot of this stuff like that closely over the course of the year. So I really like this recap and then look forward. It's awesome.
But I think that makes it better too, because then I take a look back at the year with someone that's also just kind of looking back at it for the first time. And I'm not in an echo chamber. It's like I get to hear someone's opinion. He wasn't hyper obsessive with all of the same stuff. So I think it makes it interesting.
Yeah, it's a good time.
But yeah, so there'll be a link to Dawid Does Tech Stuff in the description for anybody who wants to check him out. And then of course, this, share it, subscribe, give us hype points on mobile apparently, comment down below, and support Moore's Law is Dead on Patreon to ask guests like Dawid questions. And we'll have more episodes coming out for the rest of the holiday season. But until I am back from break, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And have a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarks of their creator, Tom. That guy is me, and I am indeed the creator, editor, writer, and showrunner of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, videos, articles, and other media. However, it's not just me. Moore's Law is Dead is a team, with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan, audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders being done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance is also provided by Carmen Cry and Carrie Nosugad as well. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com on the about/support page in the event you do want to hire me for consulting work, hire Gerard for audio work, hire Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or you're interested in working with Carbon Cry or Carrie Nosugada as well. You can also find our long-term sponsors on that page if you want to show them some love for putting food on our tables. Or you can also mail us some love. You can send letters or hardware donations to the following address: Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee, zip code 37206. Although, to be honest, the best way to show Moore's Law is Dead some love is to support us on Patreon. Patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content truly possible. Every month, and really every day, depending on who you're talking about, me, Gerard, Dan, and Jean-Philippe are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of content that we could not keep doing unless we knew the work was possible without being reliant on sponsors dictating every little thing we put out. Don't get us wrong. We love our sponsors, but we love directly working for you, our fans, much more. If you have any extra money, even a couple free dollars a month, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. Those couple of monthly dollars will get you access to the exclusive podcast Die Shrink, voting on subjects of future podcast episodes, the ability to ask guests questions, and of course, access to the Moore's Law is Dead Discord full of like-minded people who I am sure would love to meet you. I am one of them. Additionally, higher tiers get access to early, ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask questions in all Broken Silicon episodes and Loose Ends live streams ahead of the recording, and the entire back catalog of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, in addition to having thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts depending on the tier, with other perks available as well. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us directly every month, please do share Moore's Law is Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family, and on social media and websites like Reddit. And give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app of choice. All of this does really help us so much. But like I said, this podcast would not be possible without the patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now it is time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 10 gigahertz or higher supported levels: Brad Medlin, Drita Foles, Z-Jits, Daniel D, Nicholas Buckner, Aaron Close, Toka, Jan Rauner, MJB1, Daniel Hyde, GZ Ziggy, SNES Chalmers, Jim Ferrer, Valcom Alev, Jensen Wang, Carissa Iblock, Sir Castro, Chris Rich, Heaven Dingle, Hal Booma, Shredbird, Samuel Moss, Chris Anthenos, Curry King 3, The Boss Haas, Tommy, Jonathan, Jake Dude 23, Jake Martin, Slicky, Gamers Unite, Meat and Pork, Ian Clifford, Tim Robb, Amiable Chief, Travis Gooding, I Should Winwing, Zuzu Taylor, Mads, Patty Cakes Greg, Michael McGee, Stephen Coates, Mark Mitchell, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Salty Internet Pirate, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sager, Cameron, Michelle Pell, Hexapuma, Teak Autumn, Reginald Ari, Winstar, Little Jeremy, James I. Rader, Shay, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Stephen Dick, Mac Daffy, Justin Bustle, Austin Haggerty, Jofit, Matthew Cassells, Brian Scanlon, Harlan, Brian Wright, Slushbaugh, Jason Angema, John Swin, The Forbidden Juice, RB Racer, Bing Bong 3, Solarized 80, Elbergun, Kikum, Dan M, 1988, Sprutnik, Brian P, Hudat 42, Cornster 671, Penta Winta, Omega Doge, Hugo, Ender Kiwi, Mr. Tiger, John Wick Boomstick, Penguins LVI, Porcelain Oates, Nick Zuzmania, Smash Axley, Charles Russell, Kareem El Masri, AI Soldier 789, Ryhill, Chibulls, Bespoke, exclamation point, Kevin Kuntz, Manos, Rak Kusis, Fred Berger, Jonathan Harris, Kailin, Raichel, Kainush Kagani, Johnny Tran, Sabir, Ahmed, Josh, Arkeo, RK0, Zephyron, Angel of Cake, and of course, thank you to Sahara for the music, and thank you to all once again for supporting Moore's Law is Dead through 2025, and we hope you will continue to support us through 2026. Merry Christmas and happy holidays and a happy new year, everybody.